Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. Hello, David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives. Back today, I have as my guest Shannon Donohoe-Simpson. Welcome, Shannon.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me, David.
Great to have you here. And Shannon, we've chatted a number of times, and I thought what might be interesting for our listeners to hear some of your personal story. And a lot of people just tell the personal story and that's it. But I think you've learned so much and grown through it. It would be wonderful to explore a little bit of that. So, when you think of what your life's been like the last little while, and when things have when hardship has come upon you, just describe a little bit about that and how you've moved through that. So take us back to whatever year you want to start with.
Well, I think I'll take you back to 2009, and that was the year that I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer.
So what does that mean for those that aren't familiar with that?
So triple negative breast cancer means that it is negative to all the hormone receptors, and it is a very aggressive form of cancer, breast cancer. And so being diagnosed when I was 34 years old and my twins were 1 year old at the time, it was a bit of a shock for me. I think mostly because, I have a background in human kinetics and I worked as a recreation therapist and I ate like really healthy and I went to the gym and I just, in my mind and my friends who were very shocked as well, how is Shannon diagnosed with cancer? It just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, not that there's ever a great time to be diagnosed with cancer, but when you're 34, you've just got a new mortgage, you've got 1-year-old twins at home, and it was a really stressful time.
That's a lot all at once. My gosh.
Yeah, it did feel like a lot. And I think what made things just a little bit more challenging was my husband at the time had 2 broken hands. He had been in an accident with a city bus who was texting while he was driving, and my ex-husband put his hand through the dash, and then soon after was trying to avoid stepping over the kids and ended up falling and breaking his other hand. And it just was a lot. And when I got through my chemo, my son was diagnosed with autism.
My gosh.
And it just felt like, I just remember there was one moment like sitting at the kitchen table. Yeah, I can feel myself being a bit emotional. Like, that saying, like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And I just remember thinking, like, I think I'm pretty topped up right now. Like, I think this is my max.
And so how old was your son when he was diagnosed with autism?
My son was 2 years old when he was diagnosed with autism.
I'm just feeling the heaviness of all that. I've not gone through any of those things, but just wow.
Yeah, I think navigating cancer was definitely a journey. I think I learned how to be an advocate for myself in the medical system because I didn't want to really do things the way, of course, I did the surgery and I did chemo and I didn't want to do chemo. I ended up I just knew that I'm a very sensitive. I've always been a sensitive person, like when it comes to like even aspirin. And I knew that I wasn't going to do well with chemo. And in the end, both me and my oncologist canceled the chemo. Like it was
Wow.
going to kill me.
Wow.
And so, but the beautiful thing about having the opportunity to go through cancer was that when my son was diagnosed, I already had navigated the medical system and had a really good idea of what it was to ask for what I need and advocating for my son and not taking no for an answer. So it taught me a little bit about fierceness,
I bet.
advocacy, um, things that I didn't know that I was going to be learning. Yes, but it was when I look back now, these were both really beautiful opportunities to learn a lot about even my health. I went back to school and studied the holistic nutrition for 3.5 years because I knew that there was a huge link between cancer and your nutrition,
Mm.
and especially around sugar. And so I wanted to not only do that for myself, but I also wanted to do that for my son. And because there's a huge connection between autism and the gut health. And so I really wanted to focus in on that.
So, Shannon, I can imagine a lot of people with all that happening would have kind of gone into a depressive tailspin. But it sounds like you somehow drew on a lot of resilience to not let that define you, but rather to bounce back. Do you have a sense of how that was? What enabled you to kind of take that approach?
So, one thing I know about myself is I've always been really good at asking for help. It's not a skill that everybody embodies well. I think we're all very good at helping other people, but when it comes to asking for help, there's this sense of almost it's uncomfortable.
Guilty as charged.
Right,
I'd be one of
right?
those people. Yeah, yeah.
And yet, it's so interesting if you were to be in a room and ask a bunch of people, like, how many of you here love to help others? And everybody will put their hand up. And then you can ask the same question, but turn it around and go, now, how many of you like to ask for help? And hardly anybody will put their hand up. And it's so crazy. If we know that we all want to help each other, then why are we not asking each other for help? Like it just doesn't make sense. But I think one of the big things when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had um, medical insurance. So I, the name of it is escaping me right now. But the critical illness is what I had.
Okay.
And so I had some money come my way, which was really incredible considering I was back to work at the time when I was diagnosed. And, we had a new mortgage, we were a new family, there was a lot of expenses. And so I was able to take that and live off that money for a while, which was incredible. But also, I hired a coach. I
Uh,
hired this incredible woman, Lee Chamberlain, who was my teacher out of Douglas College when I was doing the therapeutic recreation program. And I met her at Inspire Health Integrated Cancer Care while she was supporting her mother. And it was not by mistake we ran into each other years after. And she ended up being my coach every single week.
mm.
And so at the end of the week, I remember feeling like, oh, like, I don't know, like this feels a lot. And then I remember her just taking me and putting me right back at the top again and just giving me this confidence and the belief that I could get through this
So
and I would get through it.
so I'm presuming you're a strong advocate of getting a coach to ask for
Yes,
that kind of help.
I am.
Kind of getting
Absolutely.
that sense.
Absolutely. I mean, coaches are not just for, when we're growing our business. Coaches can be for when you are going through cancer and you need someone to be there in your corner. And especially like my ex-husband at the time was trying to hold together our company and work as a firefighter full time, try to look after the kids, and then his wife was sick with cat. Like there was a lot going on, and so it was nice to allow him to let go of some of holding space for me all the time.
So your husband was an ex-husband at that time as well?
Sorry, no, he's my ex-husband now.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, he's my ex-husband now, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then now we're up to around 2011, 2012. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so we went through the cancer. Nolan is now in therapy. He's got, he's doing, like, between 4.5, 5 hours of therapy a day for
Wow.
his autism. He's got several behavior interventionists that are coming to the home, and I ended up staying home, full time because Nolan needed me there,
Hmm.
and it just made sense. So I ended up staying home and doing the company books for our company, and then that allowed me to also finish up, my holistic nutrition, and then also, be there for my kids, which was incredible.
So you mentioned the company. Is the type of the company relevant, or that's just you had a
It
company
just,
like?
we just had a building maintenance company on the
Oh,
side that we had started, before the twins were born.
okay.
And,
Okay.
it ties in only because, there was a full-time firefighting job, there was a company, there was cancer, there was autism, there was broken hands, there was just a lot of moving parts.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And, so trying to navigate all that, but again, I remember having this website called Helping Hands at the time. And this website allowed me to put out little updates and then ask for meals to be delivered to the house when I needed it. And so it just allowed, and again, people want to help.
Hmm.
People want to help. And so it was just beautiful to know that um, I could ask for what I needed and people were happy to show up.
And Shannon, is that organization still around?
I don't actually know, to be honest with you, but it was definitely, I mean, I know there's other things that are out there now, because I know another girlfriend that's gone through cancer and they had a similar thing that was set up, but it was such a beautiful thing to be able to let people know about it. They could sign on, they could get my updates, and then they could sign up for meals and whatever else I needed. Honestly, if I needed a ride to go down to chemo or whatever I needed.
So we'll
So,
see if there are some organizations like that. I'll make sure that we put them in the program notes for those folks that are listening. We'll put that in there.
yeah.
Okay. So now
So,
that's
yeah.
so then what?
So then what? Yeah, so I found myself, um, finishing the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, which was amazing, and then we found ourselves moving over to Vancouver Island, and that journey was really wanting to bring my family back to the trees and back to nature, and we had an opportunity to have a bigger space and property, and that was the dream was amazing, and yet I found myself on this big property with my husband going back and forth to the mainland, and my son not dealing well with the move at all. And so he needed to be attached to my hip 24 hours a day, even if I needed to go to the washroom, and it was a lot. And so we're navigating through that, and then found myself, one day in Cumberland on a bike ride,
Mhm.
and went going down this quite a big steep hill, and found myself flying over the handlebars, and then my bike landing with the handlebars straight up and down, and my right implant, my chest, landing right on the handlebars.
Oh, yikes.
And so that moment, thinking that my implant had probably ruptured, took me on a journey of looking into my implants and questioning my implants and wondering, like, is this the right thing? And I went to my naturopathic doctor and learned for the first time the words breast implant illness.
Oh, huh. Well, I've not heard of that before. What is that?
So, breast implant illness is basically when your body is saying no to this foreign substance that is in your body. And there is a lot of symptoms that come along with breast implant illness, everything from inflammation to brain fog to anxiety. There's so many symptoms. And so I started to look into what this was. And when I started reading the symptoms, I literally was like, check, 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 check. And I was like, oh my goodness, all of this, like, sickness that I have been feeling over the last several years, to the point where there were days I would wake up and think that my cancer was coming back often because I just didn't feel right. But I never thought to link the breast implants to anything. Like, it just didn't occur to me. Because, you get this surgery and you think, oh, well, you're putting this in my body. It must be safe.
Yeah, I kind of assume that it doesn't interact with anything, that it's sort of benign, but not the case here.
No, not the case at all. And so I went to the doctor that originally put my implants in. Well, of course, he didn't like the idea of the words breast implant illness because that's what he does. And when I asked him if he would take them out, he said he would, but he would just take the implants out and sew me up. And there wasn't going to be anything around clearing out the scar tissue or doing things the way they should be, as I'd done a lot of research around. So then this took us to a position where we ended up selling our home because we needed a lot of money to have these implants removed by a private surgeon.
Oh, wow. So-
And so I remember the day that I had them removed. It was the beginning of September of 2016. And I remember coming home after the surgery, and even just the bags under my eyes it was like my eyes were like clearer. I could see clear. The bags were like, even though I had just been through surgery, I could already feel how much better, like, I just felt in my body to have these foreign substances removed from my body. But then the interesting turn of events was that my surgeon actually gave me my implants to take home with me, believe it or not. But he also informed me that I had the allergen breast implants that were recalled
Oh,
because they were cancerous.
wow.
And I was like, so you're telling me that we get a recall for our car parts and you get a phone call from Ford, but I have cancerous implants and nobody calls me to tell me? Like,
That's disgusting. Like, that's almost unbelievable.
right?
Yeah.
So there is a class action lawsuit happening right now with Allergen, and it's been going on for years, obviously, because I had the surgery in September, and if I'm correct, and I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that the implants were recalled in like July of that year. So just a couple of months before. And I didn't even know. Like, I had no idea that I had these cancer causing implants in my body. And so what happened this year, if I fast forward to now, so maybe I need to back up a little bit, is I went through a divorce over the last couple of years. And for all the people that have been through divorce out there, I have a new appreciation. You don't know until you know, right, David? You just don't know until you know. It's just like nobody can know what it is to have kids unless they have kids, or nobody can know what it is to go through cancer unless you go through cancer. And I'll say that I would do my cancer again over going through this divorce,
Wow. Oh my gosh.
because a broken heart is, my goodness, like I have never felt so like it was a lot. It was a lot to, especially after, everything that my husband and I had gone through the autism, through the cancer, through all the things in our life. There was so much more. Like he had broke his back, and there was a lot of stuff around mental health, and my son went through anorexia for 2 years. There was just a lot of moving parts. And then to get to like the end where they're finally like almost done homeschool, because I homeschooled them for the last 7 years, and be on the other end, and then my ex-husband to ask me for a divorce. And I was just like, after all the things we've been through, like it just caught me off guard. And on the other end of it, I understand it now. Like it makes sense to me. It definitely makes sense. But a broken heart is like, it's just something else.
So, so the people that are listening won't be able to tell this, but I'm looking at someone, I'm looking at you, Shannon, and you don't seem like a person who's dark and depressed and anything like that. Like you really have that image of someone who's kind of, I think you used the term earlier, fierce. And, and
Hmm.
and is coming back and fighting back, and it's so empowering just to hear your story, but see how you're dealing with this, and the visuals really get missed in a case like that. But like that is so much to go through and still be carrying on strong. Like uh, I'm blown away, quite frankly.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that. But, it doesn't happen alone.
Hmm.
It does not happen alone. I grew up in a family where we were very much encouraged. You're very independent. You can do it yourself. And, one of the things when I moved to Vancouver Island, I found a community of women that I have been circling with for a very long time. And these women have become my sisters. And I have so many beautiful supports in my life. Like the day I moved out of my home, when I was leaving, my husband and I were physically separating after 17 years, I had 14 women in my home cleaning it from top to bottom. We had music playing, and my house was not a small home. We had done a lot of renovations in it, and we cleaned that house from top to bottom. And I mean, not us, like not even a light switch missed. And it took us less than 2 hours. And it was just so incredible to see all these cars parked up and down the road, and all these shoes at the front door. And like, that is what community is all about. And that's how we get through these really hard things. And so the download that came this summer for me, I was literally in the middle of a camping trip, and I got this download like, I need to do some healing around my double mastectomy.
Hmm.
And I have a really beautiful girlfriend, Mel, who owns this company called West Coast Karma here on Vancouver Island. And she's now on the BC Ferry. She's an incredible human. And she, for my 50th birthday, did henna jaguar art across our hands. And she said, Shannon, if you ever want to do some art across your mastectomy area for some ideas around tattoos, let me know. And so I got this download where I was literally in the middle of this campground, and I was like, I think I need to do this. Like, I think this is going to be a big part of my healing journey. And I think where this really stemmed from is because, I went through this double mastectomy and cancer with my husband. And of course, we were married, we were together. It was a safe relationship. And then finding myself on the other end now with no partner, I'm single, and I was like, am I still beautiful without breasts to another person? And I realized that this beauty isn't something that I need to seek outside of myself. It's actually something that I need to find within. And so this was the download that I got in the camping trip. And so I phoned my girlfriend Mel and I said, it's time. And I phoned my girlfriend Meredith, and she's an incredibly beautiful photographer. And I invited 4 friends, and within 3 weeks, we were in my girlfriend's backyard, and Mel was doing the art across my mastectomy area. My girlfriend Meredith was photographing it, and I had 4 women witnessing me as I spoke my story like I am now for the first time out loud from start to finish. And there was a lot of tears, and there was a lot of emotion, and there was so much healing that went on that night to be witnessed in such a vulnerable moment in my life of really learning what it is to love myself and know that beauty isn't what's on the outside.
Wow. Yeah, there's a couple of things that occur to me, Shannon, and one of them, and I can't remember who said this, other than I know it wasn't me, said that I have to do this myself, and I can't do it alone.
Beautiful.
Right, and that's and the courage. Maybe it didn't feel like it took courage, but to me, it feels courageous to do what you just did, and I think especially with a journey like this, like it seems natural for you to reach out, and you talked about how people want to help. But another friend of mine is going through cancer treatments right now, and she doesn't want anyone to talk to her or support her or stuff like that. She just wants to keep it to herself. And I guess, everyone responds to these things in their own way. But from your experience, I think the message is that people want to help. Let
Mhm.
them help, ask for help. And what an amazing gift that is to let people help you and to be
Mhm.
willing to let them do that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, like, really for me, it's how we create community around us. And it's something that I wanna show my kids too, because, we're not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to do life alone. We're meant to gather. We're meant to come together, whether it's potlucks, or we're meant to support each other. We're meant to drive each other where we need to go when we need to be there. Life is so much more fun when we get to do it with others. Like, I, I'm going on a conference coming up here in a couple of weeks, and I I haven't ever flown on a plane by myself before, which seems like really crazy. But I'm gonna do it, and these things are all so much more fun when you get to do them with other people, right? So I just I mean, I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't know what the right thing was. I just knew that I didn't I didn't want to I didn't want to do this alone. And you know, I think sharing my story gives so many people permission to do things differently that, like, even when I went through my divorce, I read this book called Conscious Uncoupling.
Hmm.
And in my mind, because, if you read the media and the newspapers and watch the news, you hear all these horrible divorce stories and how things are awful and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't need to be that way. And we can do things differently. It doesn't need to be the way that everybody else does it. And so we just need to change our mindset. And I guess that's a big part of it. is I have my morning practices, whether it's my journaling or whether I have a book called the by Mark Nepo, The Book of Awakening, and it's an incredible book, and I read it every morning. And I journal, I go to the gym, I walk on the beach, I call my friends. Like, you got to have those, I call it my toolkit, of how we get through life. And I don't know where I would be without my toolkit and my girlfriends and my journals and my quiet time. I don't know.
Well, and Shannon, I mean, you continue to, like, you ask for help, but you also continue to give. Like, I know that you have I'm not sure if you call it a blog or whatever, but called
A live show,
Toolbox Tuesday.
Toolbox Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you say maybe just a little bit about that? And again, we'll put the reference to that in the program notes. So tell us just a little bit about Toolbox Tuesday.
Hmm.
I love the alliteration to start with.
Well, Toolbox Tuesday started almost, I guess, 3 years ago, and it was me wanting to share my voice. I knew that I had a lot of things to say out loud with all that I had been through, with the different things in my family, whether it was the cancer, the autism, all the different things that I've had the opportunity to go through. And I just wanted to speak my truth and share what was on my heart. But more than that, be authentic,
Mm.
because I think there's so many people out there trying to be somebody they're not. And people are just craving authenticity. And so I just wanted to show up. So I remember my very first toolbox, and I was like, and I just was like so uncomfortable. And I think I said so and all the words like a million times. But I just knew that I needed to share my heart. And this week will be episode 167.
Whoa.
And I I do it for me. And I know that if it's helping me, that it's also helping others. I believe that.
So this triggers another memory of Robert Fulghum, who first got well known for his short story about everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. I remember reading one of his stories, and he was, I guess, sitting in his living room, and he looked out the window, and some of the neighborhood kids were playing hide and seek. And one little kid hid behind a bush just beside his house that, no one would ever find him. And Fulgham just, lean outside the window and say something to the effect of, "Hey, kid, get found." And his point was, so often we hide ourselves so well. We
Mm,
don't get known. We don't have the opportunity to connect with other people, them to connect with us. And it just, occurred to me when one of the things that triggered your Toolbox Tuesday was about part of it about being known and
yeah.
giving back and having that story out there. Just before we close off, I do have another question just to kind of put a bow on this on the life of Shannon, and that's and if it's okay talking about it. So, how are your kids doing?
Mm, my kids are doing well. Yeah, my son, he graduated from school 2 years early.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful story. I mean, this was a young boy that was very affected by his autism. He didn't walk, he didn't talk, and now he is graduated 2 years early from school, and he's actually just going into his first interview with a national accounting firm at the age of 17.
That's amazing. That's fabulous.
Yeah, and my daughter is really into the arts, and she's doing well. She's just finishing her last year of high school. And she's still homeschooling, and yeah, she's doing really great. She's got a little job at a pharmacy across the street from me here. She's learning to drive, and yeah, they're doing well. We're still navigating what it means to be separated, and our family to be different. But we figure things out, and I just want to keep continuing to lead with love and remind myself that when I am triggered, whether that be from anyone or my ex-husband, that the triggers are mine. That
Hmm.
the triggers are mine.
So, I've personally I found this very inspirational, and I think giving hope to a lot of people that whatever hardships they face, they too can move through it. If you had just a word, I don't hesitate to use the term advice, but sort of a thought that you'd like to leave some of the listeners with, that based on your experience, what are one or two things that you would just maybe like them to consider as they close off on this podcast?
Hmm. I have spent my life, most of my life, being, I would say, closing my heart because I was afraid to get hurt or afraid that it would get hurt again. And I think what I've learned through all these really difficult things is that keeping our heart open is the way to live an incredible life. You know, it's it hurts when our heart hurts and we feel these really hard things. And yet, I think my ability to hold space for other people and the compassion that I have in my heart is because I have been brave enough to keep my heart open through all of these really difficult things.
So keep your hearts open, folks. That's it's a choice that you have. And Shannon, thank you so much for being a guest here on Discover Fresh Perspectives today.
Thank you so much for having me, David. It was my absolute pleasure.
Awesome. So, David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives. The only thing I can guarantee is that next week I'll have another guest with another diverse perspective. Hope you come back and listen again. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.